Hey, welcome, 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 welcome. It's a lot of welcomes.
That's way more welcomes than usual.
It's like
Usually we
I think it was three times more welcomes, which it's very welcoming. You know,
I mean I don't have a calculator. Usually we get 3 welcomes.
welcome, welcome, welcome. This right
There it
here.
is.
It's another edition of Steak Bourbon and Sports, the show, your favorite show, in which we talk about steak, bourbon, and sports, and we eat steak, drink bourbon, and talk about sports with the greatest co-hosts on the face of planet Earth. Jeremy Mandel, who's in today for the greatest co-host on the face of the earth. I am Ari Temkin. That
You know,
sounded a lot funnier
the
in my head than it did probably
the
coming out.
the swings in quality of the introduction are just wild from one end to the other.
Figured today maybe do a positive, catch you off guard a little bit.
That absolutely catches me off guard because I was ready to be angry about whatever it was you were going to say, and I can't be angry about that.
Jeremy Mandel on Twitter at Jeremy Mandel. I am Ari Temkin on Twitter at Ari Sports. Jeremy, sir, you click if something in your
All right,
mind.
Evil Knievel's got nothing on me, Ari. I'm going to try something here.
Isn't he dead?
Well, yeah, Evil Knievel in his heyday has nothing on me.
Okay, good to know.
Because the stunt that I am about to do is tell a marriage story on a public podcast and remain having a great civil existence here in my home. And I was so inspired by your purchasing of a minivan this week that I think I'm going to do it.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, no idea what that minivan purchase is all about.
A lot of people were buying minivans this week. It's a
Today
practical car, Jeremy. Okay, it's a practical car for a family. I will not be made fun of for this. Okay, it's a very practical car at a good price.
Did you have more kids since last week? Don't you still just have the 2?
It's 2.
Most cars have plenty of room for 4 people.
Yeah, but did the doors open up by themselves when you press a button? Do they slide open, or do they open annoyingly to where if you're in between 2 cars, you have to maneuver as the car door opens in a way that's not conducive to being in a parking space? Or does it slide right
I feel
open?
like that comes right out of the sales brochure, doesn't it? Anyway,
it's pretty much how I justified the purchase of it, and then therefore the driving of this vehicle is through that.
well, I've seen no pictures of you driving it yet, but I'm going to be looking forward to them very soon. Pictures of Ari in his minivan will be going up on our Instagram at some point when I receive those photos.
Perfect.
But anyway, today in San Antonio was kind of one of those South Texas thunderstorms that's absolutely brutal for I don't know, 30 to 45 minutes. And we were out of town for what holiday was this? Labor Day weekend. So our dogs were boarded at the vet. And at the end of our work day, I went to go pick them up because they were getting a bath today. A bath that I did not have to give them, which is always lovely.
What was the last time you gave your dogs a bath?
It's been a long time. But it's still lovely.
Totally.
So the thunderstorm coincided with my picking up of the animals. So I'm in the car, I pull up to the vet and it just starts storming. I'm like, well, I timed this beautifully.
Perfectly.
And so sometimes the vet takes a long time to get them out. Of course, today I was in and out when I actually needed them to take a long time. And
do you mind taking a little bit longer? Is that possible? Can you just
I felt
go a little bit slower?
This is a slow process all the time except for when I need it to be.
Totally.
So I get my 2 dogs. They're 2 golden retrievers, both of which one due to old age and the other due to laziness. I have to actually physically lift into my car. And it doesn't matter, if it's a massive thunderstorm or a heat wave or whatever, you're lifting those dogs in the car.
Maybe you should have gotten a sliding door van, and the dogs could,
I don't see how the sliding doors would have encouraged the dogs anymore.
Well, it's also not a huge steep
would they
decline.
have been so impressed by the automatic car door that they're like, well, I'm getting in on my own here.
Well, it's not
this is
such
a
an
vehicle
arduous
worthy of
climb
my
also up
efforts.
to the van. It's a much more practical, it's more like a
Does
car.
does it roll out some kind of ramp?
It could. I think it could come equipped with a ramp if you want it.
I'm kind of thinking before this van leaves your possession, it might have one. Um, but anyway, so it's storming like crazy. My wife loves one of her favorite, like, you know how everybody has like a weird thing that they do. It's like not bad. It's just like something that they do.
A
But
foible.
one of, is that what that is?
I think so.
Okay. Um,
A
anyway,
foible. It's like a
my
weird
wife's
thing that's
my
maybe
wife's thing is she looks at radar. She loves looking at the rain radar and figuring out when the rain's coming, when it's going, how long it'll be, where it's going to go, all that stuff.
a foible, by the
I,
way, a minor weakness or eccentricity in someone's character.
okay, this is an eccentricity. It's not a weakness.
Right.
It's I don't know anybody else that does. She's got like 3 different weather apps on her phone. It's good. So
Is she a weather person, a weather girl?
she either
A
was a
meteorologist?
meteorologist in a past life or is going to be one in a future life. Who knows? But so I'm getting soaked. When I get into the vet, I may as well have just gotten in the shower and all of my clothes. After loading both dogs in my car, I am literally dripping sitting in the car. And I'm texting her about this when I'm at the red light. And on my way home.
Thanks for clarifying that, by the way.
Well, actually, I mean, I would say if it was.
While I was
not.
driving, I'm texting her. It's raining.
Well, you're in a moment. I will be texting and driving. Just
Okay.
if you stay tuned here. So she's texting me as I'm dripping and going through. But my part of town floods real easy, so I'm having to like go through flood crossings and all that, and hope that her car that I'm driving, because I don't want to get dog hair in my new car. Hoping it doesn't stall out in the middle of the street and all that stuff. And she texts me and says, well, the rain has moved out now. And I texted her back and I said, I'm in the car outside. It has not moved out. And she texts me back, no, the rain's moved out. And I'm like, look, all respect to your radar apps.
With all due respect.
But I am currently outside in the rain, and I can report to you
that it is.
And I just stopped, and this is what being married is. This is what
It totally is. It's 100%. Marriage is your wife telling you, insisting that it's not raining.
Well, and I knew exactly
while you're in the rain.
I knew exactly where she was sitting with my daughter. She was sitting on the couch in my living room with my little girl. Not outside. So, I'm just sitting here like I am being told while I am outside what the weather is outside by someone who is inside. How big a deal do I want to make this?
Lauren,
So
do you
I
have a
decide-
window app? Is there some sort of
Yeah,
app
so-
that you could see outside the window with?
I wanted to say so there, I know where the window is relative to the couch. If you would just turn your head 90 degrees to the right, you will notice that precipitation is still falling from the sky.
Marriage is, without a doubt, your wife insisting that it's raining because the app is telling her that it's raining while you're simultaneously outside, not in the rain, or vice versa.
I'm a smart enough husband to know that my answer is just okay. That's all right. But I'm not a smart enough husband to know, don't bring this story up on the podcast that you do that she will probably hear. I'm not that smart of a husband. Maybe next year.
Did you say anything when you got back? Like here I am soaking. Do you notice that it's still raining?
No. What I said was I'm going to go change my clothes because I'm dripping all over the house. And the funny thing is, by the time I actually got home, it did stop raining.
She was just preemptively telling you the storm surge has moved on. It's moved on.
She was forecasting, or as some of the news stations here call it, future casting, which means the same thing. But I think they thought some people don't understand what forecasting means, so they said future cast.
Is that serious?
No, that's real.
People use the term future casting
Yeah, it's a future cast.
instead of a forecast.
Yes.
And what's the difference?
There isn't one. I think they think that people don't understand the word forecast, and if they throw the word future in, that'll help.
What are you drinking tonight, Jeremy?
I am drinking, and this is going to bleed into our our whiskey topic today. I am drinking 14-year, 101 proof Wild Turkey.
Wow.
And you may say, but Jeremy, Wild Turkey does not sell 14-year, 101 proof bourbon. To which I will say, not in this country, they don't. Um, so what I thought would be fun to talk about this week with regard to bourbon is what's called the export market, or why I might be able to buy better whiskey sometimes in Japan or Europe or the Caribbean than I am around the corner from me. Um, and Wild Turkey is a good example of this. They have stopped on their standard American stuff. You just go buy Wild Turkey 101 or any really almost all of their products. Their Russell's Reserves single barrels are age stated. They do some other age stated stuff, but on their common stuff, they don't say how old the product is. In reality, according to Eddie Russell, they're somewhere between 6 years and 9 years, somewhere in there. But if they don't put the age on the bottle, they can kind of blend it how they want to blend it. The Japanese market doesn't stand for that. They won't buy it. So in those foreign markets, Wild Turkey still says exactly how old their whiskey is that's in the bottle. So if you still want age-stated Wild Turkey and you don't want to get a Russell's Reserve single barrel, you have to find some foreign outlet that carries it. So one of the questions that I get all the time is, okay, well, what are some, you guys talk about all these various whiskeys. What's a good way that I can maybe get something that's not on the shelf at my local liquor store? One of the ways you can do that is go to some of the mostly European liquor store sites, and you can buy pretty much whatever you want. Now you have to pay to get it shipped, and this is totally legal, by the way. But there are sites called, one's called Must Have Malts, and others called the Whiskey Exchange. There's a bunch of them, and you can go on there and you can buy these foreign release stuff and have it delivered directly to your door. One of the things, and actually the reason I thought to maybe talk about this is I know one of your favorites is Blanton's, and what a lot of people here in America don't know about Blanton's is there's lots of different varieties of Blanton's, depending on the color. There's Blanton's Gold, there's Blanton's Black, there used to be a Blanton's Silver, there's a Blanton's Green, there's Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. Everything except for the regular Blanton's that you know about on the shelf, you're buying through foreign marketplaces. But Buffalo Trace announced, I don't know, like a week or two ago, that at a time that they did not specify, they will be selling Blanton's Straight from the Barrel, and they will be selling Blanton's Gold finally in America. So I'm thinking at some point next year, you will be able to find Blanton's Gold, and that's basically a little proofed up version. The normal Blanton's is 93 proof. I think Blanton's Gold is like 104 or something like that. And then Straight from the Barrel is usually like 125, 130 proof, in that neighborhood. You'll be able to buy it in America. But for years, if you wanted to buy that, you had to buy it from one of those European sites. So tip for all those people that keep asking me, check out some of those sites. There's going to be some cool stuff that you can get on there.
Okay, so how can they now sell Blanton's Gold legally in the United States? Like, what's the difference between before and now?
Well, they can do whatever they want. It's completely been up to these various companies what they will and won't sell in the domestic market versus the international market. And the international market is, believe it or not, most of these whiskey companies feel like that's their big place for growth over the next 10, 20 years. And when I say whiskey, I'm specifically American whiskey, because around the world, like take in the Asian market, for example, they put a huge premium on Scotch, but not so much on whiskey. So if you can take away, say, 10% of Scotch's market share worldwide, that would basically nearly double the amount of production that the United States does in bourbon today. So a lot of times they like to put some special stuff over there in hopes to stimulate growth. If you look at one of my favorite follows on Instagram is Eddie Russell, who's the master distiller at Wild Turkey, and he'll go around the country and he'll do barrel picks with people. He'll do cocktail classes with bartenders, all that kind of stuff, and he'll be in Australia and Japan and Italy and all these, in London, um, just trying to kind of spread the gospel about American whiskey because the market share that's available over there is just enormous. And from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense to go after that.
Interesting. So I guess I was under the impression that there was some sort of like a, you had to water down whiskey in America, like you couldn't do barrel proof whiskey
Nope.
in America. So there's really
No,
no
there's
legal.
it's all a business calculation. I mean, there's plenty of barrel proof whiskey that's available in this country. I'm drinking it on this show a lot of the time. Um, it's just it's strictly a business decision that they made, and they want to send, like Wild Turkey wants to send their age stated stuff to foreign markets and not sell it here, um,
Hmm.
because they want to grow over there.
Is
Four
it a
Roses.
better product
Uh,
in some cases?
well, let me take a sip of this and I'll let you know. I mean, this is lovely.
You didn't really need to take a sip of it. You probably knew how it tasted, didn't you?
Actually, I just poured this.
Oh, nice.
I did not know. This was actually a sample sent to me from some friends in Florida. Um, but they just decided based on business and whatever things that you and I are not smart enough to comprehend, um, that it makes more business sense to send it over there. Now, I think, having tried this 14-year 101 proof Wild Turkey, there are Russell's Reserve single barrels that are 8, 9, 10 years old that I like just as much, if not more. Um, and Wild Turkey has only one mash bill, meaning there's only one recipe. So the only differences in Wild Turkey are where they age it, how long they age it, the differences in the barrel itself. Um, but what's going into the barrels are all the same. If it's from Wild Turkey, it's all the same stuff going into the barrels. So interesting little difference there.
So, okay, explain to me how the process works in terms of like here's a ton of barrels they have, right? And let's just say, for lack of argument, there's a set of barrels here that are ready to go, ready to be bottled. Like, how do they make the decision on, okay, what are we going to keep here? What are we going to keep? What are we going to send over there? Like, well, how are these decisions made on from a distiller's level?
So keeping with Wild Turkey, it's pretty easy. Um, Wild Turkey has one, like I said, one
One mash
recipe
bill.
for whiskey. They've got one bourbon mash bill. They've got one rye mash
Well,
bill.
how about Blanton's? Let's go to Blanton's.
Okay. Well, Blanton's is easy too. All Blantons are aged in Warehouse H on the Buffalo Trace property. I believe that was Colonel E.H. Taylor's warehouse that's been there for 100 something years. Um, a more complex one is, say, like Four Roses. Four Roses has 10 distinct recipes um, for bourbon, and they've got 20 something different warehouses on their property. Now, the interesting thing about Four Roses as compared to others is Four Roses only does single level warehouses. So you go to Jim Beam, for example, you may see a six, seven story rack house there. Four Roses is only one story, but they have it on a kind of some rolling hills, and they're different heights. And Four Roses does a real good job of being transparent with where on the property it is. If you get their single barrel product, there's a way to read it where you know exactly what warehouse, exactly what rack, all that kind of stuff. Um, so um, they try to age different recipes in different locations and see what kind of different varieties they can get. Um, there's one level 1 through 6 on the first floor, like how they stack up the barrels. There's 6 kind of rows of them going vertically, and the barrels that get put on the 6th tier of racks will usually end up with a much higher proof than the ones on the first floor, just because that little bit of
Elevation.
elevation difference over a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 year period starts to make a difference. So they have to be strategic about that stuff.
But how do they again? How do they decide what goes where?
So I'm like for Four Roses, I've asked Brent Elliott, who's the master distiller, this, and his answer was we essentially just try to get an even distribution of recipes around the property in different places. Because you never really know exactly how things are going to go. You never know the weather. For example, none of these are temperature controlled facilities. So the weather over the 8 years, if you get a few real cold winters in a row, is going to impact
The
or
taste.
yeah. So there's all sorts of. So you want to kind of spread it out, spread your risk. Um, you certainly don't want to have everything in one spot, and then for whatever reason it all doesn't work out the way you want it to. So you just try to be strategic about it. Wild Turkey, on the other hand, with their one recipe, just puts barrels all over the place. They have two main places where they store barrels on their regular property and then their property called Camp Nelson. Um, and different warehouses have different effects. If you look at Russell's Reserve, which is their single barrel product, you get people saying that certain warehouses are the very best and other ones are not as good. There are people that love Camp Nelson barrels. There are people that hate Camp Nelson barrels. I've got actually Jared Thatcher, the knife guy that was on this podcast. He will swear by Warehouse K. So there's all kinds of stuff like that.
How about Warehouse K?
Absolutely.
Jared knows what he's talking about. Okay, so why do I need export bourbon?
Well, I mean, needs a strong word. But I think if you want to kind of experience some of the stuff that's just not sold here, like if you want to have a 14-year wild turkey, that's really your only option now. There's older wild turkey that's available in vintage markets. We talked to Nick Smith about some of that stuff that was made in the 70s and 80s. A lot of times we're much older than advertised. But if you want to, I'll tell you a fun thing to do is to take one of those age stated 101 proof wild turkeys, get one of those from one of those must have malts or whiskey exchange websites over in Europe, and then go buy a Wild Turkey 101 from your local liquor store and compare the two. You'll learn a lot about what can happen. And say you're looking at the 14-year, it's usually a good 5-ish years older than the standard American. You see what that extra 5 years did to the whiskey.
And I mean, it kind of goes back, I guess, to what we've been talking about, a common theme. And that is, bourbon whiskey, it's about the pursuit, right? It's about the chase, finding different bottles, different tastes, the perfect bottle, right? Like that's the quest for that, the perfect bottle, and that's an illusion.
Yeah,
there's no such thing. It's just the idea of finding it. So I think there's like a huge element of that too, right? Of finding something you can't have normally.
Well, and there's a perfect bottle for you, but the fun thing about it is my perfect bottle may be completely different from your perfect bottle.
Probably is.
And I'm sure it is. But that's kind of the fun part. Figure out, okay, well, I like this. I don't like that. Why did I like this so much more? Can I find something that's more kind of in that vein? And you kind of figure all that stuff out. And then before you know it, there's 200 something bottles of whiskey in your house. And you're still asking yourself that.
Before you know it, there's 200 bottles of whiskey in your house, and your wife is telling you it's not raining when it's clearly raining.
Yeah, no, the weather moved out, Ari. I don't know if you heard about that.
This is Steak Bourbon and Sports. Jerry Vadell, Ari Typkin. So I've just at least got to bring this up. Can you explain this Odell Beckham Jr. story to me like I'm 5?
How about 4? I'm used to talking to 4-year-olds.
Okay, you can do that, yeah.
Odell Beckham, who of course has to play for the Browns, there is on social media something that says, and social media is the thing that Daddy does on his phone. He likes it when people make a poo-poo on him. It's very strange. And we don't like that, but apparently some people like that, and that probably is why he requested a trade to the Browns. Can I stop talking to a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So there was this story about like girls that
It's a thoughts podcast.
I don't know what that means. Um,
You know what
but
thought means?
no,
That
I have thoughts.
hoe over there.
Really, it's that easy?
It is. It's so easy.
Oh.
Thought can do it.
So anyway, they had women
I'm trying to
on
not,
that would
I'm trying to
proudly.
find out the exact name of this podcast. I want to be accurate. You know, I mean, accuracy is important.
Yeah, you know, when discussing such critical matters as Odell Beckham and this gross thing that he likes, we better be accurate.
Okay, so let's
Um,
start there. You saw this story and immediately thought,
of you,
okay,
and I said I have to send this to Ari.
the Thoughts Next Door podcast, by the way.
So basically, it was a woman who uh, likes to find herself in the company of professional athletes,
They don't call
talking
them thoughts for
about
nothing.
they don't talking about how this is a thing that Odell Beckham enjoys. Um,
Okay, so
I don't really know what to do with this story, and I kind of wish I never knew about it.
let's start with when I first saw it. My first thought was, no, I don't believe it.
Just
I
oh,
do
you don't
not
believe it? Okay. I said no. I'm not going to read this.
I mean, I kind of felt like that, and then the more I read in the Thoughts Next Door or whatever their podcast name was, my feeling was there's just because if anybody's starving for attention more than Odell Beckham Jr., it's the Thoughts Next Door podcast, right?
Yeah.
But that got me thinking about the subculture of people that perhaps are into this, that fetishize this, right? Because that is a fetish that people have, right?
It is
I would assume so. Wouldn't you assume
gross.
that? So we're at the same we're at the same point, right? But people that are into that, it's not like I guess they'd probably be more protective of that, I guess is what I'm thinking, wouldn't you? Like if Odell Beckham's into that,
Well,
he's just not going up to any random girl in the street being like, you know what, I'm into this, let's do it. Because you got, especially if you're a professional athlete, that's a fetish you got to
yeah, but
really protect.
how do you go about broaching that topic at any point?
I don't know.
Like I've been married. It's going to be 8 years this month. I would still be afraid to broach that topic with
Yeah.
my wife.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
that-
with you.
not
I
that
think
I'm
that's
going
one of
to,
those that you
but-
probably never broach. That you probably just have to either find a thought to satiate that habit, or I don't know. It just got me thinking, like, I don't buy that because I just don't know that anybody that would actually be into that would be willing to, you know what I mean? Like, just that open with it.
I mean,
And plus, you got to find somebody special to do that. You know what I mean? That's not just your run of the mill girl you're inviting over. You know, I mean that's like a second, third date kind of thing.
I'm so grossed out by this whole thing.
It's pretty grotesque.
It's really gross. Can we talk about actual football, please?
Is this not actual football? It's
I mean,
actually not football.
Well, I'll tell you, if it happens on a football field, we will talk about it for an entire show. Guaranteed. You take that to the bank. All of our loyal listeners, if you happen to see something that even remotely resembles this on an NFL field this year, Ari and I will have wall-to-wall coverage.
Here's all I want to say about this to conclude. We need justice for Odell Beckham Jr. because he's been wrongly accused of this. It is going to follow him for the rest of his career. There's going to be people that go to games with signs bringing this up, and justice for Odell, justice for OBJ, or is it OBJ?
What would this justice look like? What would that happen?
We just have to go out of our way to remind people that this is a made-up story, that he's definitely not into this, and that if he was, it would be okay, but he's definitely not into it.
Can we just not talk about it? Is that an option? Or do we have to like outwardly go bring it up with people?
I think we should
Hey,
outwardly
you didn't
bring
know
it
it? Like, hey, did you hear about this story? No? Well, it's not true.
up. Well, let me tell you. I'm going to get
Let me
very
tell you this
specific.
story. Let me tell you this story, and then how it's not true.
I'm just saying, you know, we've got to be the ones fighting for justice for Odell Beckham Jr. because otherwise this story is going to catch like wildfire and it's going to take on a life of its own. And I just don't think Odell's the type of person that should deal with this kind of thing or could deal with it. I don't know that he has the the
And
wherewithal to deal with it.
And instead, you will deal with it on his behalf.
And then
You're a great American.
as I'm telling people this, I also want to ask, is this something you'd be into? Is this something that, are you comfortable enough with me to let me know? Because I'd like to poll America to see.
Is this whole thing just a way for you to broach this topic with people because you want to talk about it?
I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by it insofar as there are people that participate in it, right? Aren't we to assume that?
Well, I know of one, at least.
Who?
Odell Beckham Jr.
No, see, you're not. This is justice for Odell, okay? Justice for Odell. All right.
Well, you haven't sold me on this not happening, but I have actual football questions.
You believe that this is actually happening?
I don't want to ask any more questions about it. I feel like I already know too much about it.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
So you are the host of the Dallas Cowboys pre- and post-game show. And I do this thing every year with the Dallas Cowboys where I tell everyone before week 1 how good the Cowboys are going to be.
Yes.
Should I stop that?
No, this is the year to do it.
Like, I feel like you've told me this many consecutive years.
I don't think I have.
I
have. I haven't been this confident in the Cowboys in a long time. Because, I mean, even the years that I've been sort of confident in them the last couple of years, I was always...
See, but what happens with... And I think maybe this problem is just that I'm friends with you. And this is not the only time in my life where that's been a problem. But in this particular instance, this is the first year, gosh, in a long time where you haven't gone to Oxnard. I mean, nobody went to Oxnard. So, I mean, over the years, you've come back from Oxnard and been like, oh, my God, you just wait until you see so-and-so. And then so-and-so is like cut by week 6.
That's not true. I'm only bringing you back accurate, pinpoint information.
Like last year, you were telling me that Chidobe Awuzie was about to be like the next Deion Sanders or something.
I definitely did not go that crazy, but I was excited about him, which is why I'm totally out on him because he inaccurately sold me on him being better than he is and has really for the last couple of years. I blame him.
And then there was what's that linebacker? His name was like Bruce something.
Bruce Smith?
Yeah, like that one year you told me how good Bruce Smith was going to be that year.
Just kidding. Bruce Smith, isn't he a Hall of Famer?
No, that's the defensive end. No, but there was a linebacker. His name started with a B or something. I don't know.
I think the Cowboys are going to be good this year.
This happens to me a lot.
I just don't think that anything can derail how good this offense is going to be, except for Jason Garrett, and luckily he's not here anymore. I am a little concerned about Mike McCarthy in terms of how much he sold himself versus what we'll see in reality. So I guess we'll have to see on that. But yeah, I mean, this offense should be so good. And here's, I guess, the good news for Cowboys fans is if it's not, then and you're not sold on Dak, quote unquote, then you kind of get both. Where like here you've got no excuses for a guy like Dak Prescott, so he should show out because he's good and the offense is going to be good and the weapons are going to be good. But if he's not, then it'll be on him. But I'm very confident the Cowboys are going to be very good this year. I'm very concerned about their defense, but you just don't have to be great on both sides of the football.
I mean, it would be nice.
But nobody is.
No, like ever?
I mean, you look at Super Bowl champs of the last decade, you're going to find 9 out of 10 are top 5 in offense. They're not top 5 in defense.
So you're picking them to win the division, I guess.
Yes, picking them to go 12-4 and win the division.
And then what?
I have to see them first, because winning in the playoffs is about coaching.
Okay, so that's interesting though. I feel like this is the kind of thing that I find interesting and other people would find interesting, but you're living it, so you don't feel like it's interesting. You are hosting a pregame show for the Cowboys on Sunday.
Yes.
You have not seen them play.
Yes.
How do you do that? I mean, that seems hard.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, sometimes you can be skewed by the things that you see in training camp that don't always translate.
Well, yeah, we've just gone through some examples.
We've established that, right? I mean, and that's the thing I've always maintained. Like, there's just no correlation. Guys have good training camp, they have good seasons. Guys have good training camp, they have bad seasons. Like there's a zero correlation there. So, the unknown here is not just with I haven't seen this team. It's the coaching staff. Like that's the big thing is what is this team going to look like schematically? How will they call
theoretically
plays?
in a normal season you would have gotten to like talk to these people.
Yeah, totally.
So I find this interesting as someone who's not in the media at all.
It's definitely a different perspective, for sure.
That I can't decide if this is like going to be great or terrible for your ability to know. It's definitely not going to be the same.
Well, so for people that are listening that don't understand, like, yeah, normally I'm at training camp, I'm going to media availabilities, I'm going to open locker room. I don't have the access this year that I've had in the past. It's very minimal. It's basically one reporter, or for a few outlets, a couple more for every single outlet in Dallas. So, you have that very limited access for media. So I've not covered them like I have in the past. So it's a different perspective for sure. So I think my perspective is skewed through the lens of the people that I'm reading, as opposed to the observations and inferences I'm able to make for myself while I'm out there.
Well, and as you say, history now tells us that you are not exactly a talent scout. So perhaps reading the words of people who might have a chance at being a talent scout are better. But
they're as much talent scouts as I am. It's the same thing.
I mean, they are talent scouts in that you both call yourselves talent scouts.
I've never. I barely call myself I'm not even a reporter. I could barely put together cogent sentences from time to time.
You're a circus monkey.
Yes, pretty much. So I'll be dancing. I'll be dancing on Sunday, getting everybody hyped up and ready to go for a season that I think is going to go pretty well. But we'll find out pretty quickly how much different Mike McCarthy is from Jason Garrett. And that, to me, dictates what I believe will be the ultimate outcome of this season. Because I don't need that information to tell me how good I think this team is going to be in the regular season. Because you can have good seasons, but winning in the postseason is about coaching. And I know Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl. Like, I understand that. People listen to this right now. Like, I get that. It's a different era of football. It's a completely different era of football that we're in now. So winning is different. You have to have a different approach to winning in the playoffs than you did when Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl.
So Mike McCarthy winning the Super Bowl related question. I was completing my fantasy
Go back
draft
to the Odell Beckham story or no?
No, we're done with that.
Okay.
Do you have any other things to say?
Just fascinated by the whole experience, the whole thing.
Do I need to call you a thought? And
No.
You can explore this maybe a little bit?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I know your wife would not be up for this, so that might be the only shot.
His wife would be. Honey, I got to tell you something. There's something I've been holding back from you. I have this weird fetish. It's not that big of a deal, but it might be a deal breaker for you.
Sweetie, what are you doing later tonight? Let me tell you about my lunch.
There aren't actually people that want that, right?
I hope not.
I hope not. I hope they'd rather
really
just watch it
not.
on a video or something.
So, anyway, moving right along as quickly as possible. Was Mike McCarthy critically important for Aaron Rodgers? Because I was just in a fantasy football draft, and my the very last pick before you take the defense and special teams. Some years I take a backup quarterback, other years I don't. This year I took Lamar Jackson as my first string quarterback, so I felt like I should have a backup. And freaking Aaron Rodgers is sitting there available as my backup quarterback in the very last round. What's going on here? Am I just
old.
like that out of
Father Time is undefeated?
That's it? He's just it's over?
Well, I mean, it was a precipitous decline. What do you want me to say? Like 10 years ago, Lamar Jackson wasn't a guy on your radar in fantasy football. The average career of an NFL player is like 3 years.
Okay, but I mean, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers here. This is not like backup defensive tackle for the Seahawks.
Well, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to play that position for a long period of time, especially a guy that's sustained the level of hits that he's sustained over the course of his career. The thing is, like, it's also equating success. Like fantasy is different than football success. Like the Packers could be really good this year, and Aaron Rodgers could be good this year, but he might not put up a ton of really good fantasy statistics for you, and maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
McCarthy has a West Coast style of offense that was conducive over the years to a lot of fantasy points, right? Which is why if you don't have any Cowboys in your team this year, maybe you should. Go pick some up. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Blake Jarwin at tight end. These are all guys that could have major years. In fact, I think Jarwin could lead the team in touchdown receptions this year.
Well, allow me to hit my waiver wire real quick.
Because they're like, how do you defend them in the red zone? Like, what are you going to do? And then you get a really athletic, big body over the middle of the field.
He looked good at the end of the year.
Yeah, and he's just going to get great matchups all the time in the red zone, where he's going to be on a linebacker that he's completely able to just throw the ball over the top and it's over.
Yeah.
This all goes back to why the Cowboys, if they want, can be so multifaceted with the ability to kind of move CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper inside out, where you have two guys that can play the slot, you have two guys that can play on the outside. They're comfortable playing both. They can play on the same side of the field, and they can go up to the line of scrimmage and notice the defense and then basically make a change off of that. Like, there's so many different things that they can do. It's going to make them impossible to defend, which is why I'm excited about this Cowboys team this year.
This is going to end terribly for me. I can already tell.
I can't wait. Jeremy Mandel, Ari Tempkin. Make sure to follow the podcast if you're not yet already. Plenty of places you can do that, where you can subscribe on iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a rating because it helps. The more ratings you have, it's just like anything else. If you were to buy a product online, you saw it had like 4 ratings, you'd be like, I'm not going to buy this. Nobody's bought it. But if it has thousands of ratings, you're probably more likely to buy it, or at least that's what my wife says. So give us a rating because it helps other people find the podcast. And give us a shout as well. Tell us what you think of the podcast. At RE Sports on Twitter. Jeremy is at Jeremy Mandel. But for now, Jeremy, leave the people with something.
I am on day 24 of a dry age. It's supposed to be a 30-day dry age. This is the hardest part of my dry age, not cutting into it now. Please tweet me encouragement on whatever platform you're in, because every day I come home from work and I want to cut into my dry age ribeyes, and I haven't yet. So please send me support. I need you now more than ever. Fare thee well.
Also, real quick, shout out to Chris Bennett, one of our loyal listeners, who's the best, who lost his father last week.
Yes.
Who is an Army veteran. So condolences pour one out. Yeah, pour one out for Chris Bennett's father.